what did you get out of Friday's game? What did you see? I guess we can. Should we do positives and negatives? What were the positives that you saw out of that game?
So the positives was a lot of the young players. TreVeyon Henderson taking back the kickoff, and then he had a couple nice runs as well. Looks as explosive as you would expect. Kyle Williams, I know this is going to sound weird. Kyle Williams had the best game I've ever seen a wide receiver have who didn't catch a pass. He was constantly getting open, and Josh Dobbs was either just missing him or not throwing him the ball. But I thought he had a really good game. Some of their defensive players, Craig Woodson, who kind of had a quieter camp after a strong spring, I think showed a lot of the things we saw in the spring you got excited about, constantly around the football. The UDFA, Elijah Ponder, the pass rusher, I thought showed up a couple times. And then Will Campbell, we can get to the negatives. He did have one play that, kind of opens your eyes in that regard. But in the run game, he's mean, he's nasty, he's physical, and you can see how he can be a game changer in that facet of the game.
Yeah, young linemen, they usually get the run game first, right? It takes more of kind of like refinement and technique in pass protection, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, especially when you look at the way that him and Jared Wilson, another rookie who's next to him, and it's rare you have two rookies playing next to each other on the left side of the line. You look at the play on which they got beat. That wasn't, he got overpowered. That wasn't short arms. That wasn't anything like that. It was a twist, and him and Wilson have only been playing together for like 3 weeks, and they got to communicate and figure out how they're going to pick that up. Instead, Campbell gets caught up in the middle. Wilson can't get around to block the outside guy, and it puts a free rusher on Drake Maye, who probably should have taken the sack there. But that's a coaching moment. And Mike Vrabel even said after the game that was something they were working on in practice, picking up, and they were picking up in practice. It just has to translate. So that was a moment, I think, where you just see two young linemen encountering something that they haven't encountered a lot before, and they're going to have to figure out how they want to handle that.
Watching Will Campbell closely, for the time that he was in there, and I forgot to ask anybody of substance before this morning. I asked Zoe, and he hasn't gotten back to me. But I thought I saw Will Campbell jump early about 5 times. I thought they looked like false starts where he was taking a step back, like either he is like got the most elite timing of anyone on that line, or that's something that it could present itself as a problem. Did you see any of that, Alex?
I did. So that's a lot of linemen do this in the league now because they know the snap count, right? So they now try to jump the snap count the same way a defensive lineman does. Morgan Moses, I actually didn't notice if he was doing it or he didn't play Friday night. But like in practice, Morgan Moses does that a ton. A lot of veteran linemen do it. Trent Williams does it a lot. Trent Brown used to do it a lot here. Chuks Okorafor tried to do it last year in a preseason game and got called for 3 false starts in a row. So, there's a skill that comes with it. And sometimes if you're getting too close, officials will call it. Some people would say 1 false start, if you're getting that extra quarter second over an entire game, is worth the trade-off. And there's some debate on that, but it would not surprise me, especially considering how close Campbell has been with Morgan Moses, if that's something he's working on and maybe trying to get that right at the snap and jump the snap in order to get that extra quarter second, because it's something you see linemen around the league do. But I did notice that, Hardy, and he was very close with it a few times. That might draw a flag at some point. If he'd been in the game longer, maybe that would have been the case. But I don't think that's him not knowing the snap count. I think that's him trying to do something that we see a lot of tackles in the league do.
I wanted to get back, Alex, to what you were talking about, the rookies starting, obviously, the left side of the offensive line. Those 2 guys are pretty much cemented in there unless they get hurt. But it was telling to me that TreVeyon Henderson left the game as soon as the ones left the game on offense. You mentioned Kyle Williams. I saw all the film on replay of him getting open and Josh Dobbs not getting him the football. But in the secondary, all of a sudden there's momentum for Woodson to start and Duggar running with the 2s at practice yesterday. We talked with Mike Giardi about the possibility of trading him, Duggar that is, and that looks like more and more possibility.
It's going to be hard to get somebody to take on the contract. That's kind of my big holdup there. But it looks like he's getting passed on the depth chart. And whatever that ends up being, it ends up being, whether he's just here and he's an expensive backup, if they can find a trade partner, if they decide to eat the money and cut him. Last year was not a good year for him, and he was hurt. He was playing through an injury all year, and that clearly impacted him. But he still at times hasn't looked like he's all the way back, and he missed the whole spring while he was still rehabbing from that injury. So I don't know what it is, but it might be something that's still impacting him. If this is something that's going to be nagging, that's going to be chronic, that he's just never going to fully come back from, it's going to be tough because it impacts his ability to move. And what made him, a good player before he got hurt was his ability to recognize the play and quickly get to the spot. And you lose half a step on that, and it changes his game.
But again, let's talk about Henderson a little bit. And now Ramondre didn't practice yesterday. It just looks more and more like Henderson might be your starting running back for this team.
He might. I think with Josh McDaniels has always been very aware of like how much usage his running backs are getting and not overusing guys. This is something I've talked about the last few years. They've run Ramondre Stevenson in the ground. He's top 10 in touches until late in the year when he gets hurt, and you can see it, like his play diminishes. So they're not going to want to do that. This thing with Henderson, he took off last year at Ohio State because they went out and got Quinshon Judkins, another really good running back in the portal, and his touches decreased, but his overall production increased. And that was kind of the knock on him the first 3 years, was durability and his ability to handle a heavy workload. So I don't think you're going to see like a real bell cow back here. I don't think you're going to see a guy play 55, 60% of the snaps at that position. My guess is high 40s is where Henderson will be, and Ramondre Stevenson will probably be high 30s, low 40s with Antonio Gibson mixing in as well. It's more about situations. Like the starting running backs are relevant. Ramondre Stevenson can come out on 1st and 10. Who's in on 3rd downs? Who's in on the 2-minute drill? I think that's going to be TreVeyon Henderson. He's going to be more maximum impact, even if it's not volume. I think is, at least for this year, I think is what's ahead of him.
All right, Alex, we were talking about Drake Maye, and look, if you go out on the street and you said, you ask people, how was Caleb Williams last year? Everyone's going to go, well, he sucked. And then you look at his numbers and you're like, well, he didn't suck. Like, he put up pretty decent numbers. He had a bad offensive line. If you ask people, how about Drake Maye? They'd be like, he's fantastic. He was great. Drake Maye now is going to be looked under like a similar lens of Caleb Williams in that, he's going to be expected to win. How confident are you on him in his second year? And, he didn't play a ton last year. How confident are you that he can make that leap to not only being, physically gifted and being able to do all those things, but not make mistakes?
I mean, I feel a lot better than I did at the beginning of camp because I think he's picked up the offense. I don't think that's going to be the hurdle. Some people had it for him. He looks comfortable in that offense. He looks in control, but he does need to cut down on the turnovers, like that play on Friday night, right? You just got to take the sack there. You're not getting that ball out. It's not ideal, but that's the big thing. That's the big unknown. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy like, Brady or Rodgers in his prime that's throwing 4 interceptions in a season. That's just not his game. He's going to have more turnovers than the average quarterback. I said this on Zolak and Bertrand last week. I think a good number for him, turnovers, not interceptions, turnovers, so including fumbles. Can he be under a turnover a game? I think even if he starts 17 games, right, and he has 15 turnovers, some people might look at that as high. I think it is high relative to the average quarterback. For him, if the rest of the production's there, right, he's up close to 30 touchdowns, throwing and rushing, you take 15 turnovers. So it's never going to be. Can you win
10 games when your quarterback turns it over that many times?
With this defense, I think they can. And this schedule, that's part of it too. It's a weak schedule, but I think they can. Like a turnover a game, this defense should be forcing a turnover a game, right? So if you're netting that out 0, you should be in good shape. Now, if it's if he's getting closer to 20 turnovers, then it's going to be a lot harder.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, Alex, I talked to you more, but I have more Jordan Hudson news, and I can't be I can't leave that on hold.
You got to give the people what they want. I get it.
Thank you, Alex. And the people want you as well. And you can get all the Alex Barth you can handle at 985thesportshub.com. He's one of the great analysts out there.
For the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.